We cover things on YouTube. This is a buy for the show, and we want to cover the ownership experience. And they flat out are trying to rob money from people and charge them $750 in labor for something that will take less than an hour. Welcome to Texas Truck Channel. I'm Brian.
I'm Craig.
And boy, we've got some Ranger updates for you. So before we get too far into this, I do want to point out a couple things. This video is not meant to slander anyone, but we are going to objectively cover an issue we've had with the Ford dealership network. And as the headline says in this video, Ford generally doesn't have your back like some other brands do. And I want to get into that, and feel free to debate below, but we've been really let down recently with this. Let me take it back a little bit. We had a suspension noise on this truck, a rotational sound.
Hard to hear, but yeah.
It's not doing it now because
not much.
because I've fixed it. We took it in for diagnosis for the noise. I heard a rotational sound on the driver's front corner, which we have since diagnosed on our own as to be a CV joint that's going out. Took it in. They called back several days later and said, hey, we've diagnosed it as the shocks are bad on the truck. I said, that's weird. These are brand new rebuilt shocks.
Designed for a Ranger.
Designed for a Ranger. Let's get into that real quick. If you're new to the show, come in here real quick. These Fox shocks right here, Craig, these are not the ones that came on the truck. These are off of the 23 Ranger trimmer that do bolt on. In fact, the rears aren't even the problem. They're totally fine. We have had these rebuilt, so they are brand new seals, everything, rebuilt by a shop here in Fort Worth, and we've had no issues with them. But they are starting to squeak, so that's fair, understandable. I can see why the dealer would not want to handle this because they're not the shock that came on the truck. Totally fair. We had no issue with that.
But what happened is they heard it was making a noise, and I think they heard that and immediately just dismissed any other noise.
Completely. So they didn't diagnose the CV axle that's bad, and they said these shocks were bad. That's fine. Brought it home. I did some research. Fox shocks need some maintenance. It's called PTFE lubricant. You spray it in on the shock piston, and then it goes away. That's why I'm not hearing it now. It's just been solved. So that's fine. Park that issue. Today's sponsor for this episode. I'm actually really excited about this. We've been waiting for this for a while. This is the Lasfit liners tailgate liner.
Yes.
Because we had the hard liner from the factory, and I don't love it. I do love the Lasfit one, which as you can see, we've used a ton. So right now, we're gonna pop this guy off and throw that guy. Let's do it. Let's take this cover off and see what we've got. Okay, and
Pretty straightforward. And look, Brian, that factory one is better than nothing.
oh, totally. We haven't scratched the surface, which is nice, but I do love the material on the Lasfit one. Now, I will say Lasfit's packaging is really impressive. Every time we unbox one of these, I'm like, they're never going to go back in this box. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah.
They're wound up so well. And we got to get it out there that every time we open one of these, they do need to lay flat for a little while because they are just in a box. So we're going to lay it out. Now, what we should do if we're smart is lay this out for a few days upside down. And we're going to need these screws that are already in the tailgate. Now, in our case, because we came with the hard shell bed liner, we need to get some of these screws instead of these long ones that were with our bed kit. So if you had a hard shell liner you're converting, you're gonna need to get some of these guys. We'll do the same. But for now, for demonstration purposes, we're gonna drive home a couple of these right now. Wow, that was easy. This thing is just fresh out of the box. We're tacking this just to hold it down, but this is gonna curl out after a while. As you can see, these are not flat yet, but they will flatten. We have proven that time and time again with these. I'm happy that it matches too. The truck is fully Lasfitted out. I'm happy about it. If you want to get one for your truck as well, we've got a link below. Thanks to Lasfit for sponsoring this episode. Let's get back to some lunch duds. Fast forward about 3 weeks later, give or take. Craig's at the truck for a little bit. I get it back. I'm cleaning it. And I look down here, Craig, and we are just missing lug nuts. Now you can see right here, we've got 2 left. But what had happened, and I actually lubricated these because I wanted to make sure they weren't like stripping as I'm putting them back in because something seemed off on them. I pull it over here and I check them. I get my torque wrench out. They are all slightly loose. Not all of them. One was finger loose. But they were all very not to torque spec. As if someone put the wheel back on and didn't retorque the lugs. They just like maybe walked them in with an impact but didn't drive it in. Or didn't torque it, one of the two. Or maybe over torqued it and stripped it, but I didn't see witnesses of stripped threads. I go to tighten them back down, like, well, we've got 3 left. I don't want to roll this thing around on less than what we need. And as I'm torquing it, snap.
And torquing it to spec.
I'm looking at the gauge and it's reading about 50 foot-pounds. We have a digital impact wrench. I can see the reading. It goes snap. Here it is. There's the stud snapped off. You can see the threads are not stripped out. They're not corroded. But there's some type of fatigue at this point on the stud itself, on the vehicle. So this leads me to believe.
And to be clear, we don't have spacers or anything. It's not.
There are no spacers. These are a Bronco spec wheel, which are the exact same bolt pattern and spacing as a Ranger. The offset is slightly further out, but that does not change this math at all.
So the good news is Ford took care of us.
Well, no, that's where that didn't happen. So just the synopsis is we took it in to get repaired, and Ford said, these are aftermarket nuts on the end. They're black.
You're talking about this?
Yes. Not the lugs, just the bolt or the nut.
Okay.
They are black instead of the chrome acorn ones, which are known for failure anyways.
Are the ones that always break off?
Yeah, these are actually an upgrade, and said they will not honor the warranty, and that we had over torqued the lugs, and that it's going to be $1,033.87.
What? Wait,
repair them.
Wait, for this?
For these. And let me show you what these are. So I went on to AutoZone and I ordered 6 of these, Craig. These are new ones. These are what broke. They somewhere in the This is a lug stud.
Pretty straightforward.
It knocks in on the back side of the hub.
Yeah.
And that's it. Every car has something like this. These are easy to change in most scenarios. Yeah. So I'm going to asterisk that because we're about to get into it. Do you know how much this was, Craig?
Couldn't have been that much.
$6. $36 for 6 of them shipped to my door. They wanted $1,033 for this.
Plus, how'd you get the truck back?
I had to tow it back again. So, a little background. It towed in on Ford Roadside Assistance, as the dealer recommended. He goes, hey, just have them tow it from your house to the dealer.
So they took care of us there.
They did. Well, Ford did.
Yeah.
Did. That was just the Roadside Assistance, though. Nothing
right.
to do with the dealer. And they wouldn't tow it back. So, we had to tow it back here.
At our own cost.
Our own cost. Well, thankfully, Haggerty Roadside Assistance had us covered on that. They're kind of like a AAA in that regard. But luckily we had that. Otherwise, it would have been $200 to get it back here. So, anyways, I'm very let down on this, and I feel like Ford has kind of left us out to dry on a brand new vehicle, and the excuse is this right here.
But but maybe there's more to it, Brian. You reached back out to the dealer, to the service manager, to get a detailed report of, well, maybe they're going to do more than just that for $1,000, surely.
Yeah, it's like, so what's the $1,000 for? He goes, well, we have to take the hub off. It's like, okay, so give me the breakdowns. Well, it's $323 for parts. I'm like, okay. I went on to Southwest Ford's dealer website, and it was, I'll put it on the screen, but all in, it was like $140 for 6 of these.
Huh.
So I'm like, where's the rest of that coming from? He goes, well, there's an axle nut on one-time use. I'm like, why is there an axle nut? He's like, well, you have to take the hub off.
But an axle nut doesn't cost $150.
No, it doesn't. So I'm still not sure. Maybe it's shop supplies and that kind of stuff. I don't know. I do know that if I went to a conventional shop, it would probably be about $100 to get all of these changed.
Right.
Including labor. So, moral of the story is we're not going to be taken by some dealer who can't handle their own business appropriately and taking care of customers. We're going to fix it ourselves. Here's 2 things we're going to find out. Does the hub actually need to come off? Maybe it does. Are there any other signs of wear, maybe on the backside of the wheel, that we can't see? We're going to look at that too. Other moral of the story, Craig, is how'd they get to $1,033? Labor. He said it was an hour to take the hub off and an hour to go back on, and 1/8 of an hour or something like that per lug stud to knock it in. So if we can do this with the hub on the truck, that negates a lot of that and tells me they're just not quoting correctly. But who knows? We'll find out in a minute when we do it. I asked him what the labor rate was. Any guesses?
$150.
$250.
What?
$250.
Attorneys don't get that.
So what's frustrating is he's not taking our word for it, which I understand. It's our word versus theirs. And I asked him, did you take the wheel off? And he's like, oh, I don't think we took it off. No. You inspected the suspension. The only time the wheels have been off are when we've taken them off, which is 3 times. We torque them every single time. We don't mess with that. And them, I suspect, once. So anyways, that's where we're at. It's very unfortunate that there's been no support on this. And I'm glad we bought a brand new truck to get left hung out to dry. And then purposely appears to be charge a horrible rate to do a simple job. Let's get into it and see what we really find. The shock noise we fixed by spraying PTFE lubricant right there. That's already been solved by us. Here's the CV joint that they never diagnosed, which we have since, now that we're messing with it. Feel it binding?
Yeah.
Hear the clicking up here?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's classic CV joint failure. And there's no reason for that to be happening, so we're going to have to change that as well. And at this point, I almost don't even want them touching our truck. So we might just order that and change it.
It's not worth arguing about warranty.
And going back and forth and the time wasted, we've literally had this truck at their dealership for about 2 weeks total of not use time because of them trying to figure things out. So let's get the other side up and check out that lug sensor. Okay, now let's see the back of the wheel real quick. Okay, so the wheels are not deformed in any way. Nope. That's just from us hitting with lug studs going on. Here are the studs that are left. Keep in mind, I inspected these and put some lubricant on them just to make sure we weren't fighting anything. But there are 4 missing. So we're gonna have to knock these out. To get to that point, we're gonna take the caliper off and see if we have space to do this without taking the hub off the truck. That's the big question on the labor. Ford says this lug nut is apparently $150 according to their quote they sent us. And I'll put the quote on the screen right here, which is incredibly vague and does not list part numbers or details or hours used. All right, so that's how Ford's treating us. So let's get into this and see what we got. Okay. All right, pop the rotor off.
I just want to show the people what we just did there was about $500 worth of labor.
According to Southwest Ford and
right, because you're going to have to remove the hub, even though you can literally just tap it out and put it in.
Oh, wait. What part of remove the hub is necessary? I don't see any. You just knock it out. There's room. Okay. So I know we sound like we might be a little biased on this or a little salty. Is that the right word? Salty?
Oh, we're definitely salty.
I'm freaking salty about this because it's a brand new truck.
Well,
and by the way, we use a torque wrench every single time.
And this is not a knock on Ford necessarily, the manufacturer. This is a knock on Ford's dealership in our area.
Fair. Well, hold on. Back it up. Not just our area. This is a shared experience. This is actually a Ford problem because Ford allows this to be an issue. Now, I'm not questioning the truck's manufacturing. I don't think this is a manufacturing defect. I think the dealer took this wheel off, looked at this.
Completely agree.
Saw a shock that we put on, which is fair. It's not the one that came with the truck.
Put the wheel back on, didn't tighten it down.
Didn't tighten it down. We drove it and they snapped.
Yep.
Now, because our wheels are so good, we didn't even feel that they were loose until they were missing. Because they were resting on the cap right here.
Yeah, because we don't have wheel spacers or anything like that.
No, we're doing this right. We didn't buy some cheapo wheel that doesn't fit the truck. Right. This is baloney. So even on the repair conversation I had with Ryan at Southwest Ford in Weatherford, Texas, which you should not have your vehicle serviced at, he even told me, yeah, because the lugs aren't standard or factory equipped, we can't warranty this. And also,
he's talking about these.
Yeah, we're happy to repair these, but you're gonna have to give me new of those black ones because I can't get them. He had no problem putting them back on. He's had a problem with replacing them at their cost. So, anyways, this is the silliest thing, and they flat out are trying to rob money from people and charge them $750 in labor for something that will take less than an hour. The reality is the service tech that works on this is not taking the hub off the truck.
Oh, and he's doing it quicker than even we are because he's got on a lift and the right tools.
Yeah. He's going to knock these out on the truck and move on with his day.
Yep.
We're going to do the same thing. All right, boys and girls, you can simply use a hammer. We actually have what's called a Ford hammer for our older Fords we work on called Thor. Oh, wow. Craig, should we take the hub off? You think we should take the hub off?
Nah.
Me neither. 1/8 of an hour of labor. They're all out. We do need a hammer for this one because it's not even. Here's the one that is not broken off the truck, one of the 2 that didn't snap off. And I don't see, it looks a little bent. Right here, it's kinked just a little bit. Good news is we have new ones from AutoZone that have a tapered head. They look better. They have zinc coating to avoid the rust that we see on this factory one. And this one's $36 on the Southwest Ford website, parts department. And this one's $6. We actually had a coupon, Craig, from AutoZone. This ended up being $16 for all 6 of them.
And AutoZone's not a sponsor.
Oh, wait. The hub's on the truck. Can we still do this?
I hope so.
Plenty of room.
So you need space at least that big because you're trying to get that in. So
you could put the wheel on and try and space it that way, but we got to put all the brakes on to make that work. We're going to slide this guy on in a spacer to drive that difference in.
Yep, that's enough space there. So
we are not going to use an impact wrench because that would be reckless. We're going to drive it nice and slow. See the backside there, Craig? Mm-hmm. We're bringing it in. And the point here is not to ugga-dugga this thing where it snaps and we have another issue.
You just want it to be seated.
Right. But because this is not a factory Ford one, Craig, and it's the AutoZone one, it has a lifetime warranty. If it ever breaks, we'll just take it out and replace it.
They won't charge us anything for parts then.
Nope. And it'll probably last forever. Out with the old.
Yep.
This is what happens at the dealership. And in with the new, what happens with ownership. How long did it take, Craig, to put those on?
10 minutes, maybe.
Maybe. We spent more time filming this. All in all, I would say if we did this start to finish without a camera, less than an hour without a question.
Absolutely.
Let's put all this back together.
Good.
Oh, Craig, I pulled the recall on this. 100 pounds. Last time I used this was on this truck.
Weird.
Let's put him back on here. All right, Craig, hang on. It's May 18th. This is video proof in case we have any calls from Ford later. Torque wrench is on. Oh, solid beep. There you go. That's it. 100 foot-pounds. Let's just recap kind of the details for some people that maybe are thinking we're going to just slander the dealer. That's not what we're doing here. Right. I blatantly feel like the dealer broke this and tried to charge us $1,033 to fix it.
I don't see how it could be anything else.
How long did it take us?
Not 30 minutes max.
Max. We were filming too, so we weren't filming. If I was on my own, I'd probably do this in half an hour.
After work time, maybe 20 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe.
So they tried to charge 3 hours of labor at $250 an hour, plus $320 in parts, which cost $36 AutoZone. But okay, if you want to go to get the Ford ones, it's $146.
Okay.
If you go to a online Ford dealer vendor, it's even less than $100 for all 6 of them. So that was the dealer at the door price. So anyways, this blatantly feels like this service advisor in this situation is trying to take advantage of people, us in particular.
And this is why people don't like dealers.
That's why people don't go to dealers. They end up, they go to Toyota.
Yeah.
That's what happens. If we're being honest. And Ford needs to hear that. That's what happens. Yeah. The reality here, Craig, is I like this truck a lot.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great truck. This has nothing to do with that.
No. But the experience does matter for owners. And depending on what kind of owner you are, I may not recommend Ford for you.
Yeah.
I might push you to well, it depends what dealers in your area.
Yeah.
Okay, let's cover some other things real quick. It took less than an hour.
Yep.
$36 to repair.
Yep.
Here's on the screen. Here's the quote they sent us for $1,033.
Very detailed.
Very detailed, part numbers and everything. Completely, blatantly lied to us that the hub had to come off. The hub did not have to come off.
Right.
I highly advise not taking the hub off. That'd be a waste of time and energy for everybody and potential for something else to go wrong.
Right.
Don't do that to people. You're trying to screw people on this scenario.
Yeah.
So let me give some background. I'm tired of holding this thing up. I did let him know. And the GM of the dealer, John David, who I like John David, he was very good with the buying experience. I'm not picking on him in particular. I'm not particularly picking on Ryan either, other than that he's the medium in which this experience is happening. I'm sure he's following his training, and maybe that's a bigger issue. But he is the person I'm dealing with. I let Ryan know, in case you weren't aware, this is a media vehicle. We cover things on YouTube. This is a buy for the show, and we want to cover the ownership experience. And we are going to objectively cover this as the ownership experience, which we are now. Objectively, this situation is trying to take advantage of owners and buyers on an item that should be a warranted item because it's dealer's fault. Plain and simple. If you want to blame it on a lug nut, that debate can be had. Ryan himself was fine putting that lug nut back on. We all know lug nuts don't break studs like that. It just doesn't happen. It comes from over torquing or under torquing and driving on them. That's the 2 ways lug studs break. We have not over torqued it. They haven't either because the 3 that were left in the truck were loose. So that's my take on it. You can take what you want from this. And I'm not going to say you shouldn't buy from Southwest. I still enjoyed that experience. But I will reiterate something I've been saying for years, and I think Craig agrees with me on this. If you're mildly competent with wrenching, don't buy for warranties because they don't necessarily have you covered. And I don't think Ford has the owner covered here either. That's all I got to say. Be wary if you're buying from Ford. They don't have your back. And be wary of what dealership you're servicing with. Thanks for watching. See you next time.